Sometimes in professional sports, a player who is loved by his fans switches teams. And, sometimes the fans of his old team turn on him, almost as if he was a traitor to the country. They burn his jerseys, they badmouth him in the press. The love that they had for this player disappears completely. When you switch your allegiance, those that you used to be with can get downright angry about it. Today's Dining Room Devo is about people's reaction when we put our faith in Jesus Christ. We're looking at 1 Peter 4, verses 3 and 4. For you have spent enough time in the past doing what pagans choose to do, living in debauchery, lust, drunkenness, orgies, carousing, and detestable idolatry. They think it strange that you do not plunge with them into the same flood of dissipation, and they heap abuse on you. The last time we talked about how we need to arm ourselves with determination to follow Jesus, even if it leads to persecution. And in verse 4, Peter says that they think it's strange. Now, who is the they that he's referring to? Well, it goes back to verse 3, the pagans, those that don't follow Jesus. But in the case of Peter's audience, these pagans are likely their neighbors, their friends, maybe even their family. And one of the hardest things when you give your life to Jesus is helping your friends and your family understand why you aren't doing the things that you used to do before you found Christ. When your priorities and your purpose change, it can be hard for people to understand who haven't had a similar heart change. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 4 that the God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers so that they cannot see the light of the gospel. Now, who's the God of this age that Paul refers to? Well, it's Satan, who has dominion on the earth until Christ reigns. Paul says that those who don't know Christ are living in spiritual darkness, as if they have a blindfold on, and they simply can't see what we see. Here in 1 Peter, Peter has spoken a lot about persecution. We've talked about that quite a bit on these videos. And, it's one thing to endure persecution at the hands of government officials, right? We would like to think that we can prepare for that, and we'd like to think that we would handle that kind of persecution okay. A judge that you don't know condemning you would be hard to deal with, but it really wouldn't be heartbreaking. But when persecution is at the hands of those that we love, that's hard to endure. It's personal, and it hurts. If you've experienced that in your life, if you've experienced persecution from friends and family, people that you love, take courage. Christ knows what you're going through, and it hurts him too. Peter says in verse 4 that the pagans, the people in our lives, think it's strange that you do not plunge with them into the same flood of dissipation. He uses that term, flood of dissipation. Now, the Greek for flood doesn't mean a flood like we might think of, where a river rises, because of a lot of rain. Instead, it means an overflowing. Think of a volcano that overflows, that erupts. Peter writes this less than 10 years before Mount Vesuvius erupted in Italy, destroying the city of Pompeii. In that eruption, a poisonous cloud of ash suddenly rained down on the town of Pompeii, and excavations of the site, even today, reveal that the people were instantly buried in ash. They were literally frozen in time, and they can now find a macabre snapshot of these people's final moments. The people doing what is described in verse 3, this debauchery and lust and drunkenness and orgies and the like, the people doing this think that they're going along with the crowd. But kind of like those people in Pompeii that were suddenly buried, really it's a volcanic flood that's bringing destruction and death on them, and they're not even aware of it. Peter says that those people that are a part of this death tide wonder why we as Christians aren't joining them in the lifestyle they're living. And as a result, they may heap abuse on us. Jesus said that we can expect this. This is what Jesus said in Matthew 10, verses 34 to 36. He says, "Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household." Those are hard words to read. Uncompromising truth is hard for compromised people to handle. So we can expect that there will be pushback if they don't understand the gospel. And there's really no easy way to deal with this. It's just a reality. Jesus said in John 15:18, "If the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first." I love the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. And there's one of the stories is Prince Caspian. And in Prince Caspian, there's this little girl named Lucy. She's the youngest of the Pevensey children, these two brothers and sisters that are often in Narnia. Lucy represents having a childlike faith. And in this one scene, she sees Aslan, who's the Christ figure in the books. She sees Aslan while they're on a journey, and she knows that this great lion wants them to follow him. And only Lucy can see him. And she can't convince her brothers and her sister to follow her as she tries to follow Aslan. And she's depressed and saddened and frustrated by this. But that night, Aslan appears to Lucy and tells her that she needs to wake the other children up and to follow him. And Aslan says that if they don't see him, and if they won't follow him, and if they won't follow her, that she must follow Aslan alone and leave her brothers and her sister. That'd be hard for a little girl. And it can be hard for us to leave the crowd to follow Jesus. But you know what? We must follow the Lion of Judah. We must follow our Redeemer no matter what. In our last video, we talked about that old song, "I have decided to follow Jesus." Well, there's another verse in that song that says, "No, though none go with me, still I will follow. Though none go with me, still I will follow." You know, people may reject us. They may ridicule us. They may scratch their heads and walk away from us. Your allegiance is not to the lost, but to the Lord. So be patient with those that don't know him. They're called lost for a reason. Pray for them. Witness to them as best as you can. And 1 Peter 3:15 we've looked at says, be ready to explain your faith to them. You can be a witness to them, and they may find Christ eventually through your influence. I mean, God's story, our story, is that the lost can be found. But no matter what, follow Jesus. Keep following Jesus. We'll see you next time. May God bless you.